Holland is a region and former province of the western coast of the Netherlands, a European country bordering Germany to the east and Belgium to the south, with a population numbering over 17 million, having one of the most beautiful capital cities in the world, Amsterdam. The Netherlands is a constitutional monarchy, which was divided into 12 provinces, a number that is no coincidence. It grew to become one of the major economic and seafaring powers in the world during the 17th century, which is known as the Dutch Golden Age, when many colonies were founded, including the Netherlands East Indies, currently called Indonesia, and New Amsterdam, which was later traded with the British and renamed New York. Netherlands literally means lower countries, influenced by its low land and flat geography. Ironically, the Dutch are the tallest people in the world. The term Dutch is used to describe the Germanic ethnic group native to the Netherlands. They share a common culture and speak the Dutch language, spoken by about 22 million people. The origins of the word Dutch go back to Proto-Germanic, the ancestor of all Germanic languages, and means of the people, referring to a nation or race of people. Of course, as the tribes among the Germanic peoples began to differentiate, its meaning began to change. The Dutch East India Company established its first outpost at Cape Town, South Africa in 1652. Dutch settlers began arriving shortly thereafter. As the number of Europeans, particularly women, in the Cape swelled, South African whites closed ranks as a community and chose to live apart, which is where the term apartheid comes from. In 1685, they were joined by French Huguenots fleeing religious persecution, many of whom became farmers, establishing a thriving agricultural civilization.
Now we can move to color blindness and always look at the man by the content of his character, never the color of his skin. I'm down for that. You get my vote. Yay and amen. I'm for that. But before we get there, we need to hear some truth. Black people had Africa, that big old continent over there. They never built one boat that was seaworthy. Not one. There's not one monument in Africa, in all of Africa. I know you're talking about Egypt. Egypt is not Africa. There are no great cities that were built. Even before the first colonization of white people coming to the shores of Africa or the slave ships, black men built nothing. No sewer system, no houses above one level, and none of them made out of stone, all of them made out of grass and wood. Black men, before the white man ever got to Africa. The worst thing that could ever happen to South Africa was when they gave it to Nelson Mandela and black folk. That was a great nation. Now, notwithstanding apartheid was wrong, we all know it's wrong. I'm against it. There should have been some other resolution, though, than turning it over to Nelson Mandela. Disease, AIDS, and crime is running wild in Johannesburg. They're killing one another over there. They're dying of sickness. The government is mismanaged. The people who ran the nation are now leaving the nation because black folk don't know how to run no nation. They don't know how, and we need to admit it. I know you don't like it, but you need to stop shucking and jiving. We got a problem. Nigeria produces oil every year, yet the children over there are hungry and pot-bellied and walking barefoot. We got a problem. You talk about the Hutus and the Tutsis. Look what's going on in Zimbabwe now with Mugabe. We got a problem, black folk. And forget about Zimbabwe and South Africa, Nigeria. Look at what y'all have done in Harlem. The most the black people have ever done, they did it here in America under white people's help. When they were in Africa, they didn't do nothing. You can get mad with me all you want. You can say what you, but you can't prove me wrong. Now, I'm not saying this because I hate black folk. I'm saying it because I love you enough to tell the truth.
During the latter part of the 20th century, segregation in South Africa was seen as racist and socially unacceptable, and with political pressure from other nations and globalist forces around the world, came to an end in the 1990s, giving rise to Afrocentric communism. The difference between regular communism and Afrocentric communism is that in South Africa, which now leads the world in interracial rape, crime, and murder, now legally justifies the government confiscation of farmlands from whites and turns a blind eye or even promotes the wholesale slaughter of its white population. Of course, the vast majority of black South Africans today are recent arrivals from areas to the north, which makes the idea that these lands were somehow stolen from them sound more like an excuse to carry out what most white South Africans describe as an ethnic genocide, ignored by the corrupt globalist-controlled medias around the world.
Controversial land reforms in South Africa are raising tensions as the nation's white minority arms themselves to defend their farms against government seizures. One America's Christian Rhodes has a story.
White South Africans are arming themselves to defend their properties in the wake of the land reform advanced by the black majority government of African National Congress, or ANC. This comes amid a tidal wave of farm murders aimed against white landowners in the Rainbow Nation, and Afrikaners claim the government's inaction on violent crime and the planned expropriations fall in line with the ANC's far-left policies of white genocide.
When you leave home, you can feel the animosity. It's like if you walk down a street, you can feel it's like your skin color depicts who you are, not your soul.
This comes as the ANC is seeking to seize Afrikaner properties in both rural and urban areas. Most recently, ANC leaders, including South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, reaffirmed their commitment to the land and property expropriations at a so-called land summit in Boksburg, Gauteng. The upcoming reform is simple. If you are white in South Africa and you own land, a farm or a city home, the government will take it away with no compensation for the sake of greater social justice. Meantime, South Africa's streets are mired in violent clashes between the police and the country's black majority, who demand the land expropriation reform advance faster. Left-wing radicals claim European settlers stole their land hundreds of years ago, despite back in the 17th century South Africa was a sparsely populated desert, whilst the Rainbow Nation's black majority formed as a result of mass migration from tropical Africa in the late 19th century. 24% of South African land is owned by the government, while an additional 34.5% of South African land is owned by black people. This renders the ANC's claims of 70 to 80% white land ownership invalid, and also disproves the claims the black majority is lacking agricultural lands, as up to 70% of land claims currently filed with the government pertain to land in urban areas. According to a land bank study, more than 90% of farms redistributed since the fall of apartheid in 1994 failed and turned into squatter camps or subsistence farms. Rampant economic mismanagement and mass migration are challenging an ever-increasing number of people to leave their country or die fighting against the regimes of corruption, legal thievery and political repression. This process, unfortunately, is becoming universal and has reached far beyond South Africa, including countries such as Sweden, France and Russia.
Either we stay here or we immigrate. That's the only two options we are left with.
So you think your choices, are to leave the country or perhaps literally to stay and fight?
Yes.
Kill or be killed?
Yes.
The looming escalation of violence in South Africa is bringing the Rainbow Nation closer to a full-scale civil war over the nation's economic demise of the past 20 years, which has been racialized and politicized by the far-left ANC leadership. This, however, doesn't mean the farm murders and attempts to dispossess Afrikaners of their property will remain unanswered, as the number of Afrikaner commando training camps is growing exponentially in the face of the ANC tyranny.
You can't leave this place, really. Sorry.
My name is Robert Sepehr. Thank you for sharing. Please leave a comment, be safe, and I will see you next time.